Bon and Jeff, I wondered if you might be interested in a little bit of information as to how your Joan Lee designed stained glass lamp was actually constructed. Well, what you're looking at here is actually our stained glass shop, and what's nice about it is if you look out here, right out the window, you can see it's easy to be inspired when you just look right out here and you're right on the water. But back to your lamp. Like everything else, the first part of the procedure is to have a design. And Joan actually designed this one, and this is one of the 6 panels. And you can see she chose the white for your wedding dress, not you, Jeff, and the aqua for the bridesmaids, and the little crystal, and some green and aqua beads that will all be incorporated into the design. The next step is to take that pattern and create a template that we can use to actually cut it right onto the selected glass pieces. There's the bottom base of each panel, and there is the top base. That's one that's already been cut out. One of the tools we use to do the initial cutting is this kind of a bandsaw that's designed for glass. You zoom in a little bit. It's a little precarious, but it does a pretty good general job. Once we've got the general shape cut out, then we go over to the grinder, which really takes care of really getting the template shape exactly onto the glass. Takes a little while, but it comes out nice. And so here you find one of the cutout pieces of glass that is the top of the panel and just needs to be foiled. A thin coating of foil will go along all the edges in order to solder them together, because the solder is only going to stick to the foil and not the glass. And here is what it'll look like foiled. This is the thin copper foil that's applied to the edges all the way around. This one actually is one that we've rejected because it really didn't fit into the actual wooden template that we've made for this project. The next step is to, after the foil is on there, is to begin to apply the little crystals and aqua and actually solder them right on there. These are the aqua glassings. I'll pick it up in a minute. And here's one of the crystals that's very roughly soldered on there. You can see, hold up to the light, that they're very pretty. And so we know that once the light is on the other side of these things, they should also be very pretty. What you're looking at here is 3 of the 6 panels that are pretty much soldered together and ready to be assembled into a lampshade base. But you can get the idea that as you go around, you can see how, if that's half of the lamp, when it stands up, you'll be able to solder them all together into the shape of a lampshade, which is the goal. What we'll actually do is we'll get all 6 pieces once we have 6 ready, and we'll sit them up together to form like a tent, and then we'll put some rough tape around them to hold them in place so that we get exactly the right shape before we begin the process of actually soldering these seams that they look right now like there's a lot of space between them, but there's really not that much space. These just need to be adjusted. I think there's a little bit of solder that might be in the way on this particular joint. But you do have to have some joint space in there anyhow just to hold the solder. And pretty soon we'll get a nice lamp base for it. I know John wants to get a tree-shaped lamp base, which is a very standard Tiffany type base, and I know she wants to get that to represent the tree in your wedding. So what we've got here is the 6 completed lampshade panels, and they're all taped together with little spacers, which are actually nails, to create a about a 1/8 to 1/4 inch gap between the panels. And what we're going to do is we're going to lift this and form it into a cone or a TP or whatever you want to call it, and going to spot just on those seams. We're going to solder just little spots, just enough to hold it in place before we do the final solder. By the way, it's a beautiful day today, and I'm going to show you a little bit more of the inspiration that we get just looking right out our window here. In fact, let me go outside and show you how pretty it is from out there. So if you didn't remember, this is what our little stained glass shop looks like, and here it is right on the lake. The trees have pretty much turned all their colors now and the leaves are dropping off, but it's still quite a pretty sight, I'd have to say. Again, there's just the stained glass shop right on the water. And I know this has nothing to do with the project, but nevertheless, there it is. Well, some time has passed and we're actually kind of approaching the final leg here of assembling the actual lamp base, the actual lampshade itself. And I thought maybe you'd like to see Uncle G do some of this work. Joan picked up the lamp base yesterday, and so I'm just working on some soldering right now of these panels together. And so I'm going to show you how we solder these things together, and just for your information. Well, like any soldering project, the first step is to put some flux on the joint. And in this case, we're going to use a liquid flux because I like the way that it gets right down there into the joint. And so put a little liquid flux on. And then I take out the soldering iron, also known as the son of a bitch soldering iron, and go right into it. The solder will stick to the flux, anything, the foil that's been fluxed, and not to the glass. So you can put solder on the glass and it'll just brush right off because there's no flux on there. I'm going to go down, and all I'm doing really now is just putting enough solder in here to hold everything into place. I want to push this one in with my thumb to keep it nice and even with the rest of them. It's kind of a big gap here, as it's supposed to be. The finished product.